anyway, welcome folks back to Voices of Santa Barbara, one of the most informative and interesting programs we have here on KZSB AM 1290, and I'm very pleased to continue once a month as the host. My guest today is Celeste Barber, and Celeste and I know each other for a very long time. We both joined the faculty at Santa Barbara City College in 1995, I believe. Wasn't that right, Celeste?
That is correct.
Now, did you ever think, did you ever suppose back in 1995 when we just knew each other in the passing of the hallway, we really didn't have much in common? You were in the English department, I was in the philosophy department, but did you ever suppose that at the end of our career we would end up teaching the First Amendment to the Constitution of the United States?
Never in my wildest dreams. It's unbelievable. And we are still fighting for that First Amendment, aren't we, Mark?
Yeah, and when I say teaching the First Amendment, I mean existentially teaching, because you put yourself on the line and you got a severe pushback. I put myself on the line, and of course, as everybody knows, they tried to fire me, but they failed. It cost them $120,000 to get rid of me in an out-of-court settlement for violating my First Amendment and 14th Amendment rights to speak freely, and also to teach philosophy the way in which I was hired to teach philosophy. Right. So in your case, it's a different situation. Let's get into that. So Celeste, how did you actually get to Santa Barbara City College as a faculty member, as an English professor? How did that happen?
Well, basically, we needed the money to pay for my son's college education. That's what brought me there. Eric was graduating from high school, and he was going to be attending the University of Notre Dame out in South Bend, Indiana. And Frank and I had to scramble to come up with money. Frank was, teaching at UCSB, so he was doing double summer school, writing reviews, $100 here, $50 there. And I got a teaching gig at Santa Barbara City College. In fact, I dropped Eric off at South Bend in late August and took a red-eye home, arrived back here about midnight. 6 hours later, I was on the road for my first 8 a.m. class at Santa Barbara City College. And for the next 3.5 years, my paycheck went straight from me to good old Mother Notre Dame. And that's what brought me there. And I've been there, I was there for 20 years, 20 happy years, actually.
Yeah, yeah. And there was an episode in your life with your son, Eric, where you actually went to Germany. You actually posted to Germany for a while. Well, tell us about that. That's part of your experience.
Not just Germany, it was East Germany. This was in 1988. The Fulbright people were looking for a teacher exchange there between them and the GDR. It was part of the Glasnost. Remember, Gorbachev was in charge of the Soviet.
Oh, right, Glasnost.
So,
yes.
And East Germany was finally opening up, and I encouraged Frank to apply for it. He thought it was like a booby prize thing, and I said, no. I said, what a great chance. One, how often do ordinary Americans get to go to a communist country? And two, I grew up in the Cold War. We had duck and cover when I was a little girl, and I thought, I don't want my son to inherit that world, and maybe we can do our bit. And so we went there and we lived behind the wall for 6 months as ordinary Americans, with the Stasi, with all of the restrictions. Checkpoint Charlie, I know that very, very well. I walked it many times, and it changed our lives, for Eric, for me, for Frank. And I'd like to add this, Mark, because I've attended trustees meetings number of times over the years, usually for happy occasions, just to sit there and observe. And for your listeners, they should know that the trustee meetings are held in a large lecture hall on East Campus. And where I would sit there, I would always look to the door, the entrance to that classroom, because it was always open. And coming from a place, living in a place where doors were closed, especially to political institutions, to the college itself, Humboldt University, those doors were closed. The symbolism of that at a public meeting on an American college campus, the doors were open, people were free to come and go as they wished. People were free to speak openly, both on the dais and also in the audience as well to come up and be recognized. Uh, I've never gotten over that we have that right and how rare that right is even in the world today. This is not hyperbole for me. It's not grandstanding. I believe this with all of my heart, and I am just grateful
So
for
would
that
you say that
open door.
that's, Celeste, would you say that that's the biggest effect that living behind the Iron Curtain, living in a communist country for 6 months, because you're right, very few Americans have ever lived in a communist country for 6 months. Would you say that that's the biggest takeaway, the biggest outcome that changed your life and changed Eric's life?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. In fact, I just got a chill up my spine because I was just remembering many times when I would walk down the boulevard of Unter Linden, which is the main street in Berlin, and I would look down a side street, one of the side streets there, and that's where the American consulate was. No embassy because they didn't recognize East Berlin as a capital. And I would look down there and I would see the American flag flying, and I knew that I was safe. I'd see the Marines standing there outside, and I just felt comforted that so far away, in this land, because we were in the heart of the Cold War. Berlin itself was the very center of the Cold War. That's where everything was aimed. And yes, I was very mindful of the restrictions, uh, and the paranoia. I mean, there were things I loved about living there. We made friends, and we have wonderful experiences. But it became second nature for us that whenever we were talking, even in public, you would just go like this. And when we left and we were in West Berlin, I remember sitting in a Bierstube in Munich and talking. My dad had joined us, and I was sitting there with Frank and Eric and my dad talking in this Bierstube, and there I was as we're talking, going like this,
Looking over your shoulder, looking
looking
over
over
your
my
shoulder.
shoulder. It didn't.
And was it because the Stasi, the secret police, the communist secret police, were listening to you and making sure that you are not saying anything against the government? Was that the reason why?
Funny, Frank said, that after the wall came down, they estimated that 25% of the population were Stasi. And these are ordinary people. It's not, FBI. You would have an ordinary person. Like Frank taught 2 classes there at the university. We knew that one of the people in there, one of the students, worked for the Stasi. His colleagues there, the East Germans in the American Studies department, were Stasi. But Frank used to say, it doesn't even matter how many Stasi there are, or even if there are any. The important thing is they're in your head.
Yeah, yeah.
And we had
Yeah.
friends, we made friends there who were independent souls, and we had to protect them. We were fairly
Right.
protected as Americans because they didn't want an incident, but we had concerns for other people there, and we didn't want them harmed.
Well, let's introduce the fact that you are running for one of the 3 seats that are up for re-election or election here on the Santa Barbara City College Board of Trustees. And let's just review the districts that are up on the ballot. There are, I believe, 7 districts because there are 7 members of the board. Is that correct?
That is correct, and there are 3 seats that are open for newcomers or incumbents to try to return.
Right, and we have an incumbent running, and her name is?
Veronica Gallardo, and I believe she's in the 2nd district. She has been
Right.
an exceptional trustee. She's a public school teacher here, elementary school teacher. She's been one of the real gems on that board, and for people in that district, I hope that they will go for her.
Yeah, in 2018, she served as board president and did a very fine job of negotiating that particular period of Santa Barbara City College history, because that was just after the floods, the fires, and my lawsuit against the college, and the tenure of President Anthony Beebe, and all of the disruption provoked by the social justice warriors on the faculty and on the student body. So she did a masterful job of that.
And she has such grace. I mean, this is a woman who works as a teacher, elementary school teacher, right now, having to do that through distance learning. I can't imagine how she's doing that. She's also married with children. She has a family, and yet she comes to that board always prepared. just a good voice. So I hope that, I would like to see her returned to that board.
I would too. I think that she would be a great. We're gonna take the first of our 5 breaks here, Celeste. I am Mark McIntire, and this is KZSB AM 1290, and my special guest today is retired Professor Celeste Barber, and she is running for the Santa Barbara City College Board of Trustees. We will be right back with more exciting information and news about this election just after these messages from our sponsors.
You are clear.
Clear. Oh, good. Well, that went fast. They always go fast, these opening segments. I think it was a great intro. So the second segment, let's just get into why you are running. Okay? So let's just get into why you are running. And we've got about a minute 52, minutes 58 minutes left, 58 left for the commercial break.
That'll work well, because I am running because the board currently has a good political mix on it, and I wanted to talk about that. And we will have time for me to talk about the Academic Senate at some point, correct, Mark?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, everything from this question forward, everything should flow. Okay. Your initial, you might want to pick it up. You're retired. And then you went back because of what Miller, you became involved because Robert Miller, the president of the board, canceled the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag, go through that whole routine. And then in another segment, we can devote a special segment to the Academic Senate, where you ended up defending the right of everybody to speak and to be heard in the open meeting of the Academic Senate. And so so this coming segment that's coming up now in a couple of minutes, actually less than a minute now, we can cover why you are running, what happened to you such that you decided that you were going to put yourself on the line existentially. And I think that people will respond to the fact that you are now in the arena, you are in the public arena. Anytime anybody steps out into running for elected office, they are what Charlton Heston and Richard Nixon and Teddy Roosevelt all named their autobiographies in the arena. I don't know if you know that or not, but all three of them titled their biography. Stand by, we're standing by. Message here, I'm getting messages from my faithful engineer, Richard Dugan. And we're back. I'm Mark McIntire, your host today for Voices of Santa Barbara. Kind of foggy, the sun is trying to burn off. Here in Carpinteria, my special guest, Celeste Barber, she's on the other side of the Great Divide, and she is my special guest today. She is running as a candidate for one of the 3 seats for the Santa Barbara City College Board of Trustees. And we were chatting during the break about how anyone who steps out and offers themselves up to public voting has really stepped into what we call the political arena. And it's a very dangerous place. It used to be a lot more fun than it is these days. So I'm just going to toss it to you, Celeste, former professor of English at Santa Barbara City College for many years. Celeste, why are you running for a seat on the Santa Barbara City College Board of Trustees?
Well, currently, our Board of Trustees is pretty well politically balanced, and I want to see that maintained. And by that, I mean that it's about a 4-3. There were 3 individuals on there who I would say are very, very far left. And then there are 4 who seem to hover right about the center, moderate liberal, moderate conservative. Veronica Gallardo is a moderate liberal, and I would say that same thing for Peter Hasland. Craig Nielsen, probably moderate conservative. That makes for a very healthy board, because it means that when they face these important issues and they have to come up with resolutions regarding the campus climate, that they're not all in lockstep, that they come from different perspectives, they discuss them, and then they come to consensus. And you never want to see a board where every decision that they vote on, they've already decided, and it's unanimous 7-zip. What you want to see is some split, and even more often, a healthy discussion in which ultimately they say, yeah, we can all agree on this, and we can vote unanimously. I think that's especially important for board of trustees, because we also represent the public. We represent the people who elected us, the entire community, and a healthy board that covers the full political spectrum, that full range, is representing everybody in the community. I am concerned that there is a push now with this election to swing it all the way over to the progressive left. It's not good for the college, the students, the staff. It's certainly not healthy for democracy. That's not the America that we want to live in. One party control, one ideology. And so by coming out there, putting my name out there, I would hope that people would see that I am a moderate. I'm both liberal and conservative, but right around the center, willing to, consider all ideas. And that's actually the man that I'm replacing, Craig Nielsen. He was a wonderful trustee. Were he running again as an incumbent, I would have his yard sign on my front yard. But that's the reason. I want a good, healthy board, just like the one what we have now. Keep it.
Yeah. Now you're running in District 2, I think. Is that correct?
No, I'm District 4.
District 4. I'm sorry.
Yes,
District
and for
4.
those who are unfamiliar, mine looks like this huge monster. It's kind of unwieldy. The best way to describe our boundaries are: for the east, it goes to about Hope Avenue, to the west around Patterson or Cambridge, and then to the south, maybe just a little bit below Hollister, and then north above Foothill. But it also goes up 154 too. It's a strange little creature. It has like these close, highly populated areas, and then it has like huge forest. So, maybe the coyotes will vote for me.
Right. Now that's important, because a lot of people listening to our program, and they'll see the program actually on YouTube when I finish processing it. But a lot of people say, gee, I'd really like to vote for Celeste Barber, but I don't live in her district. So what I'm going to do is when we do the video, I'm going to put up the map over that description you just gave as to what your district entails. And so that people can realize, gee, I can vote for this lady. I can vote for her. I find it interesting that
you take a yard sign too.
Yeah. Oh, do you have yard signs? Do you have yard signs yet?
They will be here by the end of the month, so I would be grateful for anybody who'd be willing to take a yard sign, and they're real pretty too.
Right, and you have a website, and what's the name of the website?
The website is celestebarber2020.com, and you want to type it like that, otherwise you'll get a wonderful Aussie comedian, Celeste Barber. I highly recommend her. You'd probably enjoy her more than you would enjoy my website, but it's celestebarber2020.com for me. Otherwise, you get the Aussie.
Right. Well, that works two ways. Maybe people trying to find her are actually going to find you. That works both ways.
That's true.
Now let's talk about the fact that you consider yourself to be a moderate. I know you used to teach critical thinking and writing, as did I. At Santa Barbara City College, but you taught it from an English perspective, and I taught it from a philosophy perspective. And maybe you can explain to us how you define the word moderate, political moderate.
Open-minded. It's the old-fashioned idea of a good liberal arts education, a classroom in which every student, because English, freshman comp, everybody has to take my class. So everybody felt welcome in there. And the whole point of the class was to teach them how to read critically, how to think critically, and more importantly, how to think for themselves critically. That's what a moderate does. For example, one of the showcase essays that I would teach every semester was Martin Luther King's great letter from Birmingham jail. And of course, he lays out in that his foundation, his principles for nonviolent civil disobedience. Well, where does he get that from? He gets that, this, Mark, you're a philosopher. He gets it from Plato. He gets it from Socrates. And so I would teach both of those essays to my students so that they would learn, here is our giant, Martin Luther King Jr., who was standing on the shoulders of another giant. I think that's what a good teacher does, and open up their minds. and create excitement in a classroom, not close them off, not limit them.
During your tenure as a professor of English at Santa Barbara City College, have you noticed sort of a bell curve of literacy, the ability of our students to actually read both assigned materials that you would assign, I would assign? Did you notice a sort of shift in the levels of literacy over the years? Is it better now? Are students more literate when you left teaching, or are they worse off? Or about the same?
I would have to say, I think they were worse off. I hope they were better when they left my classroom. And I think one reason for it is, as a society, we don't read as much. They've done studies actually about vocabulary. My parents' generation had a greater vocabulary than my generation, even though my generation, most of us went to college and my parents didn't. My grandparents' generation had a greater vocabulary than my parents. And I can tell you, my grandparents didn't graduate high school, none of them. So it's, there's something else going on there as well. But people don't read, they don't even read newspapers anymore. I would question my students every semester, how many novels did you read for fun last year? I'd get maybe, 2 or 3 hands. And I would urge them, get a newspaper, get the Independent, which is free, read it. Don't just read online. Scroll reading is very different from print reading. And I would beg them to read.
Yeah, well, well put. Well, yeah, well said. We're coming up to our second break, believe it or not. I am Mark McIntire. This is KZSB AM 1290, and I'm with Celeste Barber, and she is running for the Santa Barbara City College Board of Trustees. Celeste Barber 2020.com. Celeste Barber 2020.com is her website. We will be right back after these messages. Okay, we're clear. Good, very good. So that's 2 down and 3 to go. 2 down and 3 to go. I thought perhaps now we can actually get into the kerfuffle that you ran into with the pledge and your confrontation with the board. So we'll do that for this. This is segment 3 coming up. Segment 4 will be the academic senate, and then segment 5 will be your legacy as a board member. Anyway.
And why is the world a better place? Because I'm in. Right?
What's that?
You're going to ask, and
Yes,
why is the world
yes,
a better place?
yes.
Okay.
That's
so
exactly right.
You want me to focus on the Pledge of Allegiance, not the academic.
This segment we're going to concentrate on. I'm going to tease the discussion by simply saying, what happened to you, Celeste, when you had your confrontation with the current Board of Trustees? And how did that factor into your running for that particular seat? So I'll tease the discussion that way. Okay.
Okay.
All right. And when we both started teaching in 1995, the literacy level of my students was much higher than when I left. And it was sort of a bell curve. If you take 95, and then it started to go down until the year 2000, right at 9/11, right around 9/11, it reached a low point, very low point. We started having a lot of
that was whole language. Those were the whole language kids.
Right, exactly. Yeah. But we had a great deal of influx before 9/11 of Saudi Arabian students. Remember that? We had a big influx of them. Yeah, I had a lot of them in my class. I was amazed. And they were very well prepared. After 9/11, they were gone.
Mm-hmm.
Stand by. We were coming back. And welcome back. I'm Mark McIntire, your host for today on Voices of Santa Barbara, one of the most entertaining and informative programs that KZSB AM 1290 has to offer. This program will be rebroadcast tonight at 8 o'clock in the evening, and then on Saturday morning at 5 in the morning for the former Uber drivers and Lyft drivers who are now unemployed. And then it will be rebroadcast on Sunday at 4 p.m. And also, you can always join us on the stream. I'm here with Celeste Barber, and she is one of the 3 candidates for the 3 offices that are up for grabs at the Santa Barbara City College. Celeste was a professor of English for many years at Santa Barbara City College, beginning in 1995. And when did you retire? What year did you retire? Was it 2016?
2015, yes.
15 or 16?
15.
15. Okay. And you thought, oh, that was the end of that, right, Celeste? You thought, well, that's the end of my association with Santa Barbara City College. But no, something happened that propelled you to rise up and throw yourself into the arena of public office. Can you describe, for those who have been living on the far side of the moon and don't know about the Celeste Barber Pledge of Allegiance kerfuffle at City College, can you run us through it, Celeste? It's a barn burner.
I can. In early, 2019, I was watching a trustees meeting and at home on TV, which I still did. I like to follow it. And I noticed that they didn't have they weren't reciting the Pledge of Allegiance, which is common in this country. And I had requested it be reinstated the previous summer, which they did without any controversy. They did it very quietly. So this time I emailed the president of the board, Robert Miller, and I politely asked him, to please reinstate it. And he sent me an email back, and he stated that he was not intending to do that because the Pledge of Allegiance was a document of, white nationalism was symbolic of racism and so on and so forth. And I was rather stunned by that. So I decided to show up at the next trustees meeting and speak during public comment. The board president, Trustee Miller, recognized me. I addressed my remarks to the trustees, which is what I'm supposed to do. But unfortunately that day there was a mob of faculty and students seated there for another issue. And they just started screaming at me, yelling at me, calling me a racist. And at the end of my presentation, I had a flag, a little tiny, cheap little flag, and I held it up and I recited the pledge, and they stomped their feet. And it was outrageous. It was outrageous.
Let's review the facts of the case, so that nobody has any question whatsoever about what happened in this event that propelled you now to run for a seat on the trustees. You petitioned the Board of Trustees to reinstate the traditional opening of every meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. That's fact number one, correct?
And I did not demand. We hear the word demand a lot, don't we?
No.
I made a request.
Right. And then you went to the board meeting because the president of the Board of Trustees, Mr. Miller, he had announced in public, by the way, that the Pledge of Allegiance had been suspended because, in his view, no vote was taken, but in his view, one person's view, the Pledge of Allegiance to the American flag is a racist event, and had to be banned, had to be canceled. So actually, you are one of the early cancelees in our cancel culture today. While you were at the meeting where you went in person to challenge this, fact number 3, you were ambushed by a rabid group of faculty and students who were there to protest by surrounding the trustees with placards and making noise up in their face, literally putting placards as close as 4 or 5 inches from their face.
I was afraid that there was going to be violence. But to this day, and I have said this throughout, I do not blame the students. They were manipulated by staff who should have known better. I talked about Martin Luther King Jr. before, and, nonviolent disobedience to laws that you think are unjust. And they just basically threw that out. It was a dangerous environment there for me, for the trustees themselves, including Trustee Miller, and for everybody who was there to do the work of governance. So my anger and my disgust was with the faculty, some who were former colleagues in the English department, who allowed that to take place, to encourage students to take over a lawful public meeting. It was outrageous that they would take away our rights, not simply my rights, but the rights of everybody in that room to speak, to peacefully congregate, and to go about the business of governance on a public community college campus. I will never forget that.
Well,
and it was certified for.
yeah.
I would do it again in a heartbeat. As horrible as it was, I would do it again and again and again. And in fact, it's being done across the country daily. Almost daily, I read in the Wall Street Journal and others about First Amendment rights, freedom of speech being trampled on by the progressive left in this country. And it cannot be allowed to continue ever in this country.
Fortunately, Celeste, your experience at that particular board meeting where you actually recited the flag on your own, you recited the Pledge of Allegiance on your own, during which time you were heckled by members of the faculty,
Oh, yes.
shouted down, shut her up, kill her microphone. You can hear it in the background. Fortunately, this has been memorialized in a videotape. Thankfully, Alex Madagian got a hold of the tape and sent it to Breitbart News, and then it went viral. In fact, that put you on national talk shows for a while. You were on, I believe you were on Tucker Carlson and a few other shows. So fortunately, everybody now can see what happened to Celeste Barber. Just go to YouTube and type in Celeste Barber, and you will see what happened to Celeste existentially in live.
And you know, Mark, I also wonder what part of the Pledge of Allegiance was so offensive? The word liberty, the word justice, indivisible, God. And
God. You can't mention God. That's racist.
And nobody is required to say the pledge. I even made that statement when I was standing there in public comment. I said, you are not required to say the Pledge of Allegiance. You know, they can stand on their head and do somersaults, as far as I'm concerned. Nobody is required to do that, but kindly allow the rest of us who feel blessed to live in this beautiful country to recommit to this country. And you'll recall, Mark, that when you and I were hired in 1995, we had to sign an oath declaring our intention to defend, to protect, to uphold the Constitution of the state of California, and also for United States Constitution. And when I took out papers to run as a candidate for the 4th District trustee, I had to sign that document again. I had to swear to uphold the Constitution of the United States. I take that seriously.
Well, you know, as a result of what happened to you and the result of Breitbart News making this go viral all over the nation, over 1 million people have seen this video of you being assaulted verbally by a gang of ruthless faculty members and students, and even orchestrated by one member of the Board of Trustees himself. Right? Let's not forget that. Let's not forget that. Yeah, thugs. Fortunately, they actually, because of what happened to you, even very liberal people like Rob Lowe from Montecito said, this is disgusting. I'm ashamed of what happened. And you actually got the pledge reinstated. Is that correct?
I did. And I'm proud of that. I am. It's one maybe small battle. It's an important battle. I'd also like to mention that at about the same time, something very similar happened at my alma mater, the 2-year college that I went to when I was young, Pierce College in Woodland Hills. They had set up a small space, a free speech space, and that's the only place you could talk on campus. And a student fought that and said, you can't restrict my free speech to a 12-foot by 12-foot area. And that heroic student won. And I'm very proud that, he came from Pierce Community College. I'm a product of that.
Well, you know what? We're coming up to our next break here, Celeste, so stand by, folks. I know these breaks go awfully quickly. I am Mark McIntire. This is KZSB. You're listening to AM 1290. We'll return in a few moments after these messages. Thank you. We are clear. Good. Well done. Well done. So now we can go into the faculty. We can go into the faculty senate.
You can see I still shake when we.
I know. You did a good job. I tried to I tried to supplement your rage because it's difficult to watch that video. It's really difficult for me even now to watch it, and I can't even imagine if you watch it what happens to you when you see it.
I've watched it a few times, and I will no longer watch it. It's too
You don't
devastating.
even watch it. Yeah. Okay. So now we can go into what happened at the Academic Senate, and that's going to be that was not immortalized on tape, unfortunately, but
That was the real important one.
yeah. And this is one that actually you achieved an even greater victory, I think, than the restoration of the pledge, and that's how I'm going to introduce. I'm going to tease the next segment by saying we just heard Celeste Barber describe being verbally assaulted for having the nerve to recite the Pledge of Allegiance to the American flag. But actually, after that kerfuffle was over, then she actually accomplished an even greater defense of the First Amendment, and I'll toss it to you. So that's how I'm going to introduce that.
I like this. It's the First Amendment show.
That's right. Never did I ever think that you and I would end up as defending the First Amendment after we left City College.
We used to do debates. We used to have debates in 110 every semester, and many of those debates came from the Bill of Rights. Because there was always something in the news about the Bill of Rights, one of them, and the First Amendment would come up quite often. Electoral College came up too a couple of times.
I met a young Mexican student at standing by. I'll tell the story later, off camera. Standing by. And welcome back. I am Mark McIntire, and welcome back to Voices of Santa Barbara. We're back with Celeste Barber. She is running for an open seat on the Santa Barbara City College Board of Trustees, and she is in District 4, and we'll have a map up of District 4 so you can see whether or not you can vote for former Professor Celeste Barber, Professor of English for many, many years, a beloved professor, and now she is coming out of retirement to go back on the Board of Trustees. We just heard her in the last segment describe the kerfuffle that she encountered when she had the nerve to recite the Pledge of Allegiance to the American flag, asking the trustees themselves to restore the pledge, which traditionally had opened every single meeting of the trustees. But in this segment, ladies and gentlemen and listeners, we are going to discuss an even greater victory that Celeste Barber has achieved for the First Amendment, for the defense of freedom. And it involves her appearance with the Academic Senate at Santa Barbara City College. And so I'm going to step aside and toss it to you, Celeste. What happened at the Academic Senate?
Well, first, when I spoke before the trustees in early 2019, I was recognized by the board. Trustee Miller treated me with respect. Everything we did was by the book. Several months later, I decided I wanted to speak at the Academic Senate meeting, which this is a public college, and the Academic Senate meetings are open to the public. Anybody can attend. So I went there. It was in a small conference room. All the senators were there. I turned in my public comment card, and then I tried to speak. And that's when the outrageous thing happened. The presider, the Academic Senate president, refused to allow me to continue. I explained to her that I had a right to speak under the First Amendment. She still continued. She threatened me with security. She then cleared the room, demanded a recess, so I continued making my statement to a near empty room. The only people left was a secretary who was there, a staff person who was there to record the minutes, and a reporter from the school newspaper, the channels. And everybody else left. They laughed. They thought it was funny. What they had done was they were in violation of federal law. They had violated my rights under the First Amendment. And I was so upset, and it didn't really make news, but I got myself a lawyer, Harmeet Dillon. I paid for her out of my own funds, and I sued the school. School's lawyers agreed with me. They said, you violated the laws, and we didn't even have to go to court. They had to sign a document stating they acknowledged that my First Amendment rights were violated, and that this would never happen again. I didn't ask for a penny. I wasn't suing for money. I didn't receive a dime. What I was there to fight for was the right for every person who steps on that campus and goes to any meeting on that campus to be heard without being intimidated, shouted out, or shouted down, or threatened. And I won a victory that day. And to me, it was my greatest moment. I'm proud of that. And my family was proud of me. And I hope that City College, the people who go there now, who work there, who teach there, who study there, understand that that was a battle that was fought for them. I want that clear. And for our community, we want an open campus.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, I find it interesting that we have a sort of a dichotomy between various elements. You were treated respectfully by the Board of Trustees when you recited the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag, and you did get them to change their mind. It now has been reinstated. And by the way, not everybody participates, just as you had stipulated. You don't have to say it, but it's traditional to do it. But when you went to the Academic Senate, now you're in a closed chamber that does not have any video recording in it. Is that right?
But we had an audio recording.
Right. There was an
audio. Yes, there was an audio recording.
Right. But there's no video recording. So citizens, taxpayers, people who pay for that conference room, people who pay for the salaries of those Academic Senate and staff who were in the room. There was no video of those people so that the taxpayers could actually get a good look at and a good feel for what is going on. So it really doesn't matter what you were speaking about. You and I know what you were speaking about. You were speaking about the incoming Academic Senate president, whom we both know. And you were just raising points about the propriety of that election, and you had every right to do so. I find it interesting that when the lawyers got the case, this is where we go back now to the difference between a on-campus meeting that is still public and then the Board of Trustees meeting, which is both public and videoed. When the trustees' lawyers looked at your case, they immediately agreed, yeah, you have the right to be heard, and that right cannot be suppressed. So my question to you now is, how does that factor into what you're going to try to do once you're elected in November when you take your seat on the Board of Trustees? How are you going to resolve this dichotomy between the fact that the trustees seem to be respectful of First Amendment expressions and rights, whereas the faculty itself, when they think that they're behind closed doors and no one's going to be watching them or listening to them, they can do anything they want to violate people's First Amendment rights. How do you intend to resolve that, Celeste?
With a united board. As I said at the beginning of the program, it's important that our Board of Trustees be represented by people across the political spectrum so we can come together and have a united voice. And it starts at the top. If we cannot tolerate disrespect for our nation's laws on the campus, regardless of whether it's an individual, a teacher to a student, faculty to other faculty. No intimidation can be tolerated. I have great confidence in the new president, Goswami, who's come in, Dr. Goswami, and I think it starts at the top, a visible presence. I will be a voice of reason, of moderation, of openness, of tolerance, of respect, even for my enemies. I'd also like to add this too, that the two faculty members who really went after me, I wrote them each personal letters. I'll talk about this maybe later on as well, but because I could see they were in such pain. You know me, Mark, you know what kind of person I am. And I wrote them letters explaining to them that I felt so sad for them, that they were in such turmoil. One of them, I even said, I'm I'll pray for you. And I did that Sunday at Mass. I said a special prayer for that individual because I could see that she herself was in anguish, separate from me, having not much to do with me, just in their own lives, the way they were presenting themselves in public. And I will be that kind of person. When elected, and those people come before the Board of Trustees, I will respect them and listen to them, be open to them. That's the person I've lived my whole life that way ever since I was a child. I'm not going to change now.
So you don't bear any animus, any personal animus to those individuals who shouted you down for the at the pledge meeting, who violated your First Amendment rights. You bear no animus to those individuals. You will be able to adjudicate any issues that come before the board concerning First Amendment rights. You'll be able to do that with an impartial mind. And yeah, go ahead.
I'm a Christian.
Yep.
I can't go to church right now. I have to watch Mass online. I live my faith.
Yep.
I'm a Christian. I'm not permitted to do that. It's just
we're about to come into our last break. Coming up is our legacy segment. I'm with Celeste Barber. She's a candidate for the Santa Barbara City College Board of Trustees. We'll be right back with our closing segment with Professor Celeste Barber. Stay tuned. Be right back.
Hi, Mark.
Hi. I think we're clear.
I don't see. I see a
We are
picture.
clear.
Of you. You're kind of frozen there.
Well, you see, that's why I'm arguing for 5G technology in the Santa Barbara Carpinteria area. That's one of my campaign points. Is the reason this is happening is because we don't have fast broadband with the capacity to handle all of these things that are going on. So my picture is frozen. Fortunately, I'm not picking my nose or doing anything really disgusting. And I'm just sort of looking off at you, by the way. I'm looking at your picture. So it's actually better that I'm not animated.
By the way, when you're elected, you might want to talk to Eric about that because he's in support of it. You know, Santa Barbara City Council.
Oh, really? Really?
Every week, these people come up at public comment, and they go on and on and on. Yeah, give Eric a jingle.
Yeah, because especially since for the foreseeable future, we're going to be conducting education largely over these Zoom meetings and other video conference software packages. And right now, the demand has skyrocketed for broadband, and we're at 4G. There's only one 5G tower in Santa Barbara itself, and it's run by T-Mobile, and they're not even up to capacity. They don't even pump out at 5G. They have a 5G tower, but they're only pumping out at 4G inextricably. Who knows why? But that's just phone service. Cox Cable, Frontier Cable, they're still running on very, very slow 4G. This is the reason why my picture is frozen. I attended a Carpinteria City Council meeting 2 nights ago, and one of the councilmen, Al Clark, he was permanently muted. You could see him moving around. He had a camera, but he couldn't speak. And the whole meeting, and the meeting lasted for 5 hours. This is unacceptable. This is very unacceptable. Okay, we're standing by. This is your legacy segment, and it lasts about, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to our Zoom room meeting with Celeste Barber right here on KZSB AM 1290. Well, we're in the final segment here, Celeste. Celeste is a candidate for the one of the open seats at Santa Barbara City College Board of Trustees. Celeste being a longtime member of the faculty there in the English department. And this is the segment that most people really like on this particular show when I host it, is because I always end the show with, why is the world going to be a better place because you, insert name, Celeste Barber, have lived in this world? Take it away, Celeste.
Well, for your listeners, I want you to know that Mark actually told me yesterday he was going to ask this question of me. But as soon as he asked the question yesterday, I knew what my answer would be. And it's for this reason. I'm a letter writer, and I want people to remember me as a letter writer, not an email writer, not a text writer. I believe in the power of putting pen to paper, not even typing it, and mailing a letter out to someone. I've done it for years and years. I've even written to presidents and had one president respond to me. I've written letters to the editor. I've written letters to friends, to enemies. Right now with the pandemic, I write to friends who are widows, who are elderly people who live alone, just to get them a little note in the mail. I feel so strongly in the power of just writing to people, the way it connects us. This little letter here, I saved this, I found it a few months ago, was for my grandmother. She sent it to me at Easter time in 1963. And you can see it, we don't even have zip codes at that time. That's a great gift from her. And you also get to buy stamps. This Friday, they're going to have the Mayflower stamps out in commemoration of the 400th anniversary. And they'll also have the 100th anniversary stamps for women getting the right to vote. So I'll be going to the post office to drop off a few letters and to pick up a few stamps. And that is my legacy. And I hope others will join me in bringing back this grand old tradition of writing a letter to people, politicians, strangers, friends, enemies, it doesn't matter. Thank you notes, the thank you note through the mail is a great thing, and bring back that tradition so we can come back together as a country in a wonderful, wonderful way.